Who's your daddy?
Who's your daddy?
I don't know!
Severance was created by Dan Erickson and just had its second season finish airing on Apple TV Plus and has exploded this year. This is easily one of the most talked about shows currently on TV. It seems that way to me, at least from my perception. I remember when the first season originally aired, it was kind of popular. It was kind of a thing that was talked about, but not really, not to this extent. I hadn't known anyone except for, I remember last summer, I did this internship, and one of my fellow interns had seen the show, and he had met Dan Erickson before. He told me about meeting him at this film festival, I think. But besides that, I hadn't come across anyone that had actually seen the show before, or at least if they had, they didn't say anything. So yeah, I mean, even like the months leading up to the season's release, it still just didn't feel like there was that much anticipation. I mean, not like there would be with a show like Stranger Things, for example. I'm sure it will be that way. Assuming it does actually come out this year, it'll probably be like that in the months leading up to it. And much to the satisfaction of myself, it has gotten huge and gotten super popular and made the waves this season as it was airing its episodes over the last couple months, because I love the show. I talked about it in my anticipated releases video for this year earlier in January, that this was one of the shows I was most looking forward to coming out this year, and I'm so happy to be seeing more people being turned on to it, and I just think it's so great and so interesting, and it's just one of my favorite shows that is currently still coming out with new seasons. I assume and hope that if you're watching this video, you have at least watched season 1 of Severance. I don't know why you would go into this review if you hadn't even seen the show at all. But nonetheless, I do, like to just give little brief summaries of what the thing is about, a show or movie that I'm reviewing. Severance exists in a world where this procedure known as severance, it takes place amongst certain workers where you get a chip planted into your head that separates your work life from your personal life. So these characters go in this elevator, and when they get to their job on the severed floors, they call it, they suddenly only know that life, and they have no idea what goes on in their personal life. And then when they leave work, they have no idea what they've done at work, and they only know their life outside of work. So it basically creates two different people. You have your personal life, outside of work life, and that's you. And then you have your work life, your innie, as they call them, that just know that. They only know that life. They get in the elevator, and then however many hours later, they're coming back out that elevator on that same floor they just got off to continue working. It's really depressing if you think about it. If this technology actually existed, I hope, just for the good of humanity, that most people wouldn't do it. They wouldn't take advantage of that. I know Dan Erickson had said that he had this job where he was just miserable, and he just at times wished he could fast forward 8 hours of his life to when he was getting off work. But I hope also for his sake that he didn't actually mean that, and that if this technology does ever become a thing, he doesn't become victim to it. Such a cool and thought-provoking subject, and one that I thought was done really well with the first season. I thought it was a great first season. I thought it had a phenomenal final episode. That season 1 finale, the We Are, was so tense, so gripping, and I just thought, man, they have a lot to live up to. They have some big shoes to fill with season 2, with season 2's finale, and I think that they filled those shoes just fine. If that's a weird way to word it. What I'm trying to say is that this was another great season. I'm very pleased with how this has turned out. It does what I think any good sequel should do, whether it's a film sequel or a TV series, second season of a show, which is expand upon what was presented in the first season, develop the characters more, give them new challenges, take them to new places. This season literally does that in certain episodes. The Looming Company as well, which is the name of the company that the severed workers work for, is still shrouded in a lot of mystery. There's still, even after this season and after the epic final episode, which I'll talk a little bit about more later, there still is quite a bit that we're still not hearing about and haven't been informed of, but we learn a lot more than we knew in the first season, that's for sure. This does partially lend to the pacing of the season as a whole. I think being not as consistent as it should have been. What I mean by that is that with the first, I would say, 4 episodes, a lot of stuff happens pretty quickly. Things are escalating, and it's just moving at a quick pace and unexpectedly quick. Like the way that revelations come about, it's just like, wow, like this almost just feels like we're ramping up to the end of the season where we're not even halfway through the season yet. You know, it's that kind of pace. We get that kind of pacing, I would say, up and through the end of the 4th episode, which was fantastic, by the way. Woe's Hollow, directed by Ben Stiller, I thought was the best episode of the season up until the final episode. But this was really just a wonderful episode of the show. But then the next, I would say, 4 episodes, again, maybe 5 actually. It really does slow down quite a bit after that, and it pumps the brakes. And there was still some good stuff. I was still enjoying the show. Don't get me wrong, but it was an uneven pace for the season overall. Kind of goes up and goes down for a while, and then goes up again with the finale. But I was a little confused with why it played out that way, the way that the season was sequenced and the order of the episodes. I didn't quite understand it. Then we get episode 8, Sweet Vitriol, also directed by Ben Stiller. This is by far the most polarizing episode of the show. It seems people were not too happy about this one, or just more mixed. It's not really a whole lot of negative reviews, but just people were kind of like, on it. I liked it. I thought it was cool. I liked that we got more development for a particular character in this episode. I'm going to try not to spoil this season, trying to avoid that. It did feel out of place, though, and then when we actually go on to the next episode after this, it seems as if we just didn't really need this one. It actually feels very similar. You guys remember that episode of Stranger Things Season 2 where Eleven goes off and she meets the character 8 and her whole crew, and like really you could have just gone from the episode before that to the one after that episode and not really missed a beat. You missed some development for 11, but really you kind of just don't need that episode. You can go from 6 to 8 and not miss much. It felt a lot like that, actually, like very eerily similar to that in some ways. Again, I don't mind the episode. I like it. I did think that it was beautiful. It was beautifully shot and just great to look at and relaxing in some ways, and not like because it's boring and I was getting sleepy, but it was actually like very peaceful and an easygoing watch at times. It was a cool episode, but maybe not necessary. I guess what I'm saying, it just felt kind of like filler to me. Speaking of beautiful, I gotta talk about Jessica Lee Gagne, who directed the episode before this one called Chick High Bardo, episode 7 of the 2nd season. This is her directorial debut. She is one of the cinematographers for the show and absolutely knocked it out of the park. This is also, I think, one of the standout episodes in the season. It was lensed by her as well. She did the cinematography for this episode. And it's a gorgeous episode. It's so pretty, so well shot. There's like some sort of grainy effect they added at times with certain scenes, which fit because a lot of this episode was actually told in certain scenes from the past. And it was great. I hope that there is some recognition for her debut on this episode, so I thought she did a great job. But then there is this finale, Cold Harbor, episode 10 of season 2 of Severance. I remember first finishing the first season of Severance and thinking that that finale was one of the best episodes of any TV show I'd ever seen. And I really do think that this finale of season 2 is just as good. I'm not going to necessarily say that same thing as well, saying it's one of the best episodes of any show ever. It still was so new. It's just, yeah, we'd have to wait some more time, I think, to make claims like that. I would think so. This was a hell of a finale, though. It was once again directed by Ben Stiller, written by Dan Erickson, and it was epic. It was 76 minutes. It was basically just like watching a short movie. It was, you guys know that meme of Martin Scorsese where he's like sitting back and it says absolute cinema. That was how I felt while watching this. It was epic in scope, epic with the stakes and tension. It was cinematic. I could just imagine watching this in the theater and it being amazing to watch and to experience. The actual ending of it was great too. It was upsetting. Don't get me wrong. I can understand why some people don't like it because it's not a happy ending necessarily. It was just the perfect blend of depravity, if that's kind of, I think, a good way I could sum it up. You're understanding what's going on is not right and is not good, but it's also satisfying in a weird way, even though you know that things aren't going to end well with what happens there. It's a bunch of mixed emotions that I felt watching the episode and the actual ending of it as well. I thought it was awesome. I loved the way they ended it. Loved the final episode. I loved this season on the whole. I think it is an improvement upon season 1, and I'm going to rate Severance season 2 a 9.5 out of 10. I'm scared for how it's going to end. There is confirmed going to be a 3rd season. Who knows if it'll be the last season, if there'll be more, I'm not sure. I don't foresee this show being that long. I wouldn't be surprised if season 3 ends up being the last one. Who knows, but all I do know is that I just don't foresee a fairy tale ending at all that wouldn't really fit with this show. I don't think it would be right to end it on like a super happy note. It's going to be sad, it's going to be dark, it's going to be messed up the way it all ends, but I feel like that's just, it would be fitting for it to end that way. And it's tough because I've become to love and care for these characters, a lot of them at least, and it's rough. It's a mix of emotions, as I've said, but I think that's how it has to be. Anyways, I've talked enough about this, I think. I want to know what you all think. If you all have finished the 2nd season, what did you think of it? Did you have a favorite episode? My favorite episode was definitely Cold Harbor. I'm kind of sad that it's over now. I know there's going to be another season, but that this particular season is over. Not only because I thought it was great and I enjoyed keeping up with it every week, but also because so I've told you guys I moved into a new apartment. I'm in that new apartment right now. I actually moved in just 3 days before the first episode aired of season 2. And so these like first couple months or so that I've been living here have been defined by Severance in a way. It's like I'll look back on these first couple months of living here and the experience I had with watching the show will be tied with that memory of sort of my first times, my first couple months living here. So it's a little bittersweet that it's over now. I feel like it's sort of an end of an era with the show, obviously, and also with just me personally living here. So yeah, it's a little emotional for me, I'm not gonna lie. That's all I gotta say for this video. I'll end it here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Peace out.